Hello, friends. I have a special presentation for you today, one that is on a topic that is dear to my heart. As I was out walking after I studied all the information and was preparing to do this talk with you, I found a crow feather on the ground, and I decided to look up the meaning. It was under a very tall pine tree. This tree is probably 80 or 100 feet high, and the tree is dead. It has a rope around it indicating that it will be coming down soon. And it was only a few days ago that I looked up and saw a crow perched at the top of this huge dead pine tree. I think it's an appropriate image for the topic of this discussion because crow means that there is divine balance in everything. Without darkness, there can be no light, and without spirituality, there can be no physicality. You are being guided through this. That's spirit-animals.com, and I love their website for this kind of information. Well, I feel that we are being guided through this energy of the 9/11, September 11th attack on the Twin Towers in New York City. So let's take a look at these two charts. The chart on the left is from the time of the event. The second chart is the progression. So this shows us where the energy is at right now. I used a progression of the sun. So this is this energy here, the day of September 11th, the moment the attack began. And then here on the right is the energy evolved to today's date, which is July 19th. So I wanted to just point out some basic things about the chart to start. We're going to look at where has the energy evolved to. And there's some really interesting things here that have happened. So when the attack first occurred, the Ascendant was in Libra, which is an air sign. Libra is also a cardinal sign. So if you want to learn more about the nature of cardinal signs versus mutable versus fixed and so on, yourtango.com has some great articles on it. Libra being a cardinal sign, it has the quality in general for cardinal signs of starting an action, coming up with plans to achieve long-term goals. There's a propensity to express feelings. They are self-initiating related to plans and actions, but they can also become pessimistic. You can see how all of these qualities do relate to this event that happened with Libra as the ascendant or the face of the event. The sun location would be the soul of the event, and that's in the 11th house in Virgo. There are some interesting aspects to Libra, though, that may help us as this event evolves, because Libra is all about justice. Their approach can be sympathetic. They're very willing to listen to both sides. And so far, only one side of the story of this event has been broadly told. And justice served on the initiators. Has that truly occurred? Well, as this event unfolds, the energy of Libra may take us to resolution on this over time. In the progressed declinations, the Ascendant is rising for the next 60 years from this event. So there still will be the Ascendant influence, although at the moment the Ascendant sign changes. Now, I mentioned that my friend Andrea has trained me in astrology. And when I was looking at this chart with her, here's what she says about Libras, and I think it's very interesting. She says that Libras can come across as very wishy-washy for a long time, But once they have determinedly weighed both sides, looked at all the information and data, they fiercely make a determination. And then she said, Libras are the greatest warriors in the zodiac. They will take someone's head off once they have determined that justice needs to be served. This is definitely an attack that happened by air, so that's very interesting that was the ascendant, the face of the event. The interesting thing about this, and I've used planets, I've used the goddess asteroids, and then I've used a number of other asteroids that I usually like to look at. But you can see that the energy is very spread out here. There's a lot of energy gathered in this house, the 9th house, which is the house of international energy. So this is an event that had a very big international impact. And you certainly have here Jupiter, which is the planet that expands things. And you have the moon, which is extremely emotional energy, although it's in a different sign. Jupiter's in Cancer and the moon is in Gemini. And then you have the North Node, which is a very voracious energy with big appetites. You have Saturn, which actually could represent the buildings themselves. And you have the midheaven here at 16. Jupiter's within about 5 degrees of the midheaven. So Jupiter, a very big, expansive energy, dominates the midheaven or the purpose of this event. From a soul perspective, you could see the midheaven as the purpose. You could also see it as the purpose from the perspective of whoever initiated it, at least to start, because God wins and divinity unfolds in amazing ways, which is one of the amazing things that really struck me here. I wanted to show you that there's a key aspect here. So Mars is out of bounds in the natal chart. So is Ceres. And then the North Node is just almost touching the out of bounds line, but it's 5 minutes off of the out of bounds line. And what does that mean? When a planet is out of bounds, it means that its energy is extraordinarily potent and large and wild and uncontrolled. And Mars is out of bounds in the birth chart of this event. It's at 26. The out of bounds line is at 23 degrees and 7 minutes. Ceres here, which represents the Divine Mother, is wildly out of bounds at 30 degrees. So seeing the Divine Mother as an aspect of the Creator, as an aspect of God, there is a wild influence in this event of divine energy that there's no way to control. Ceres is at 30 degrees. One of the ways that you could see this with Capricorn being at the bottom of the chart, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Saturn's up here, and Saturn represents the structures of our society. And you have in this moment this wild energy, this wild, expansive, aggressive energy of Mars, and you could almost see it as the old controllers, Saturn, the old gods, if you will. And I'm not talking about divinely connected. I'm talking about those who made themselves gods, right? Who feel that they have that power. So this is it's really the anti-life forces, right, that initiated this attack. So you could see that in this moment, represented by Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. Mars is very uncomfortable in Saturn. And so it's almost like Saturn has got its reins here on a wild energy that is barely controllable. But it's going to attempt to direct it in a specific way. And that's what happens in this event. You can see most of the energy here is in oppositions, right, from this 9th house through the 3rd house here, where you also have Chiron, which is a sign of great wounding in Sagittarius, which points to the future. So it's also interesting because Mercury in the natal chart for this event is in the 12th house, just by a few minutes, but still in the 12th house. It is on the cusp of the 1st house, so it influences the 1st house greatly. But in the 12th house, it can take years to develop an energy that is in the 12th house in a chart. You see that the sun is right on the cusp here of the 12th house. So in a way, the sun or soul energy of this event is also very much 12th house oriented. When the sun is in the 12th house or significantly influences the 12th house, it takes years to really, really connect with the truth of the soul of this event. What is truly going on here? The sun is actually in the 11th house at the event, which is the group consciousness. But on the cusp of the 12th house, you have a group consciousness that is confused about the truth of this event, that cannot see it, and it takes decades to mature the energy. Because Mercury's in the 12th house, it's also extremely difficult to talk about it. It's going to take decades to be able to really see what really went on and then be able to give voice and communicate about it, which is communication, the 3rd house, which has all these oppositions, out of bound energy and Chiron. So this is a very dramatic chart, but the energy is all over. Now, when you look at the current progressions, one of the things you really notice is that the energy of this event now, a full 20 years later, technically the 21st anniversary, but a full solid 20 years, you notice that there are very specific geometries that have just really gelled into a solid form. We're going to look at those really quickly here because the geometries tell us a lot about where the energy has evolved to. It shows us a lot. And it's fascinating that I was guided to sit down and pull this up yesterday and today, because this is really a moment here that is extraordinary. Some of the geometries in here, I think, are going to really surprise you. Let's take a look at what those are. The first thing that we're going to look at is the channel. So you see here that there's a parallel line here to this line here. These are 2 quincunxes on one side and 2 quincunxes on another. This is a very, very unusual geometry on a chart. I actually haven't seen it before on a chart, except for today, or yesterday when I pulled this up. It's extraordinary because the distance at the opening is equal, pretty much equal here. Usually when you have quincunxes like this on a chart, and a quincunx just means that this energy here is 5 signs from this energy here. See? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all that means, okay? But it's a potent energy. A quincunx is part of what makes up the finger of God, the yod form, which we're not looking at here, but which is said to point to what the divine wishes to unfold. So even one arm of a yod, which is a quincunx, it's challenging, but it also represents in a way a spiritual mission, right? 1/2 of a spiritual mission. If we resolve the 2 points of the quincunx, then we elevate ourselves because divinity points us in this direction, essentially. It's so fascinating that this channel here also has a cross in the middle of it. Look at it. Look at this X. And this is formed by oppositions from on this side here, Saturn and Vesta in Gemini opposing Pluto and Athena, Pallas Athena, in Sagittarius. The other arm of the cross has Ceres and Mars opposing Jupiter, which is flanked by Metis, the wise counselor, and Varuna, the god of the sea and the god of justice, who binds sinners. So let me put these pieces together here so you can see them. Okay, so that's a phenomenal set of energies here. Just amazing. When I looked at this, okay, what I thought was that this could represent this moment for this 9/11 energy, that it represents a tipping point where you have this set of energies lined up on this side of the channel and this set of energies lined up on that side. Now, I want to thank right now my friend Andrea Scully, and I'm going to link to her blog below because I went through and made these charts, and then I went over them with her because she has taught me astrology for, I think now 3 years. I just really, really appreciate her guidance to me on this. And you can find her link below. She offers sessions, and she's amazing at tarot, at doing automatic writing readings for people, shadow work she's amazing at. So check her out because she's an amazing person. So when I first looked at this channel, what I kind of thought was, well, you have this set of energy here, and it's opposing this set of energy here, right? Who's going to win? That was the first thing that I was thinking about. And as I involved my thinking, talking to Andrea, what I realized is something that she says all the time. And what Andrea talks about is, because when she and I talk about these shadow forces, what she will say is, are they really separate from us, or are they part of the totality of what it is to be human? And when you look at the energy from that perspective, which is a perspective of wholeness, right? It's like looking at one part of the yin yang and accepting that as the reality versus the entirety of the yin yang and accepting that as the reality. And when you do that, what I realize is that there's a balance of acceptance between this side of the funnel and this side of the funnel that causes the energy to flow in a way that enhances life. But that is the challenge. Okay, because this is very dramatic energy, and I don't want to sugarcoat it, because Jupiter up here and Saturn are extraordinary forces in this chart. And Jupiter can bring great benefit, but it can also bring death when the energy expands so much that it expands out of the physical form, right? So this is like something to take seriously. Really, this energy. And so I'm going to do an interpretation of this for you in a minute, but I first wanted to just show you the forces arrayed here. So Jupiter, the head of the dragon, is now at 0, which is, of extremely potent energy, 0. We talked about that in one of my recent videos, and in my community section, I linked an article by Astrology. You can check that out in my community posts, where she goes into detail about the meaning of 0 degrees. And it essentially, 0 degrees of Cancer, what you see here is the head of the dragon at 0 degrees, which represents all of what Cancer means, right? It's the home, it's the mother, it's security in our homes, yet there's a dragon there. So that's pretty interesting and intense. And here you have Saturn retrograding to Vesta. Vesta is the sacred hearth in the home, the sacredness of the human home. It's also the temple in which the priestess burns a sacred flame. But this energy here of Saturn retrograde at Vesta in this chart creates a compressing of Saturn's heaviness, right, and dominating energy, almost like attempting to crush the sacredness in the human home. And this is something that is very dramatic and is an outflow of the initial energy. Right? So we can see here that the initial energy in here in the birth chart, Saturn is just 4 degrees and a few minutes from Vesta. The initial energy rolls out, and the way that the forces of darkness are using it, or that it's unfolding in that direction here, is significant pressure on our homes. Right, related to the power structures that were affected by this event and who gained power and who lost power. Now you have Jupiter in Cancer, Jupiter in the sign of the home and the mother. So on the side of the negative, and I'm going to invoke the violet flame here over this discussion, which transmutes all negativity to a state of neutral. And then I'm going to evoke a sacred space for this video from the beginning, because I'm just telling a story here, okay? And I don't want to call in or create with energy. I just want to, in a neutral space, talk about the story and the energy. But Jupiter can bring death in the home, okay, in the extreme here. On the other side, in the positive, Jupiter can bring great benefit to the home. So how we apply our consciousness to this energy is critical here. How we apply the consciousness to this energy, which is in our environment, because it was a very, very big energy that affected the entire world, right? And Jupiter is it's in the 9th house, which is a global effect or an international effect, as I'm interpreting this, okay? With Saturn, the positive here, the antidote here, is that there may have been something wrong in the home anyway that we were unaware of, right? There was something amiss back then, and we didn't know. And Saturn's compression comes in to break that up. It breaks that force of chaotic energy, busting it loose. Whereupon the sacredness can be brought back to the home. The structure of the home can be reassessed. And is this part of our destiny? Destiny is in this little row here. Vertex is destiny. Okay, so on the other side of the funnel here, it's very fascinating because we still have Mars very uncomfortable in the sign of Capricorn and still out of bounds at 26 degrees. No, 25 degrees now. Ceres, though, is still at 30. But now she has joined within a degree and a half of Mars. So here you have the Divine Mother, and here you have the God of War. And now he's going to fight for the Divine Mother. And what that means is that in the natal chart, interpreting Capricorn and Saturn, which rules Capricorn, as the old powers, the old gods, the old system, going all the way back even to the Babylonian system, okay? What we have is the Divine Mother and this Mars energy, and she now has the authority here. God trumps everything, okay? And the Divine Mother is an aspect of God, an aspect of the Creator, the feminine aspect of God. That's what Ceres is representing here in my interpretation. And so Mars is going to work with her and support her. She's sort of pushing Mars here at 12, applying towards Mars. And so it will be interesting to see, is this energy turned back on the powers that attempted this? And is it used now to create anew, right, in alignment with the Divine Mother's vision for this country and following on for the world? Here on the left side of this funnel opening, you have Pluto flanked by Pallas Athena. Athena in the Greek myths provided adventurers and heroes with the tools they needed to succeed at the beginning of their journey. And now she's here with Pluto, the lord of the underworld, but also the energy that strips one down to pure soul. An encounter with Pluto means that you will find out who you truly are, or you will burn to dust trying. And that energy of burning to dust is very prevalent in this event, because burned to dust. Here you have the sign of Chiron, this K here. Chiron is the wounded healer, okay? And these three are in Sagittarius. Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter. Okay, so here's Jupiter quincunx its own sign. This really amps up the Jupiterian energy. Chiron is the master, the being who achieves mastery over his own self. He was the wounded teacher and the centaur in the Greek myths and the head of the centaurs. Chiron can represent a gift, an energy that accelerates any development evolutionarily, a wound that you don't think is a gift but turns out that way because it spiritually advances us in a way that nothing else can. Now, Chiron eventually perishes, but in doing so, he becomes elevated and is turned into a constellation above Earth. Chiron is within 6 degrees of the south node. So here you have the north node, and I'm actually just going to put this, over here. The south node isn't shown in the chart, so I'm just going to add it, because the south node is the upside down of this at 0 degrees of Capricorn. Okay, so the south node is our past. It can be past lives, and for this chart, past events. The south node is at 0 degrees, so it's kind of the culmination of everything that came to this moment related to the law, related to governance, related to how societies run. And it's all right there at 0 degrees of Capricorn, right at the opening of this funnel, opposing the south node. This south node at 0 degrees offers a new way of applying this energy. And I like to think of this energy often as the reptilian force on Earth, the ancient reptilian brain. You might not realize it, but every human being has an aspect of the brain, it's way in back of the head, called the reptilian brain. And so these ancient and old forces we were talking about can be described as similar to this kind of energy of the reptilian brain. It's more instinctual. It's very ancient. It's not very empathetic. It's not very emotional. It doesn't really value human life the way that we do in modern life with the rest of our brain, our cerebellum. So there's an opportunity for some kind of great change in this energy related to the home. Now, is the dragon going to view what's in the home as its meal, or is it going to evolve in a way that maintains the safety and security in the human home? These are the issues that we are faced with. Now, let's take a look at the other geometries present. I love this beautiful image, and the reason that I did this and presented it this way in the chart is so you could see the same thing that I'm seeing, which is the 4 lines that form an 8 points. So there's 1 across, and then these 3 are more obvious. 1, 2, 3. And so you have essentially the shadow of an 8-pointed star. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is, oh gosh, look, there's a 5th one here. So it's a shadow of a 5-pointed star. 2 5s. Pretty cool. So I wanted you to see that there's a shadow of a star. Now check this out. Here's the full star. Now this is truly extraordinary in the energies. Truly extraordinary. Every grand trine in this chart comes together to form a 12-pointed star. It's simply extraordinary. And to me, this speaks to the hand of divinity in this event. It looks like it was brought about by, quote, the bad guys. And it was on the earth, right? However this transpired, whatever the details of it are, of the disaster, of the explosions, of the tragedy. But truly you can see here that the hand of God, the will of the Creator, is what unfolds. And what tells me that is this incredible star. and the fact that Ceres, the mother, is at 30 degrees out of bounds. I mean, that's just the power of the energy of the mother and the wildness of it. No human could control that. That's divine source acting as it will in this chart. So you have the 12-pointed star, which is male, right? The structure is male. And you have the energy of the divine feminine in Ceres, out of bounds. That's female. So you have the balance of the feminine side of God and the male side of God just saying, I've got this, even though you can't understand how this is going to unfold as a human being. How will this rectify? How will we make it? How will we survive? Right? How will we end up thriving as a country and a nation? What this geometry says to me is that we come out stronger than we ever could have thought possible. It's not easy. That's what the channel shows us, and the oppositions in the channel, and the very dramatic and strong energies at each point on the channel. And the fact that now you see the sun is in the 12th house. So it has taken decades. It's taken 2 decades to get to this point. But Mercury is at 29 degrees in the 12th house. The evolution of this isn't over, yet this is an important moment in time, this summer, 2022, when the chart looks this way. It's just amazingly incredible. Now, Mercury at 29 degrees is at a very special and critical degree. 29 is a karmic degree. And Mercury being about communicating and mental energy in the sign of Libra, okay, tells us that some balance will be brought to bear here, some kind of justice, but it will take time for this to be communicated. But it's definitively karmic, right? It relates to the past and the unfoldment of the future. The balancing of this act in the future. The ascendant for the progressed chart, where the energies are today, is also at 0 degrees of Scorpio. So you see the ascendant has switched, and now it's in a fixed sign, and it's in water. So whereas this chart, the energy is all over the place and blowing all over the place. And certainly that was the intent, right? To affect the entire world, to blow around the globe, essentially. But now things have changed. We're in the sign of secrets. We're in the sign of the occult. We're in the sign of hidden information. And we're at 0 degrees. So there is still a lot of that present. And as Mercury moves into the 1st house, it will be interesting to see what new information may start to come to light.